Hi everyone, welcome to Easy Peasy Millionaire. My name is Anand and I'll show you how to grow your net worth to $1 million or more. As always, I need to let you know that although I'm an attorney at Google, that work that I do at Google is completely separate from this YouTube channel. All the views on this channel that I express, they're my views and not Google's views. In the previous video, we discussed how if you want to grow your money for the long term, you really need to invest in the stock market. Specifically, you need to invest in diversified index funds. We looked at how investing in a diversified index fund will grow your money exponentially compared to just leaving that money in a checking account. We also talked about how you need to invest in the stock market for the long term, at least 20 years. If you haven't seen that previous video, I highly suggest that you go ahead and view that video before delving into this one. And in order to do that, I've linked the previous video in the description box below. All right, today is an exciting video. It's exciting because I'm going to tell you exactly which index funds you should put your money in. I kind of hinted at this at my previous video by bringing up the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is a good candidate. The S&P 500 is an index that was created in 1957 to track the performance of the US economy. This index consists of the largest 500 companies in the United States. And these companies are proportionally represented within the S&P 500 index. That sounds more complicated than it actually is. So let's just take a look at a chart. These are the 10 top companies within the S&P 500 index. So you'll notice that based on the size of the company, it has a higher percentage that it occupies within the S&P 500. For example, the largest company in the United States is Apple, and therefore it takes up the largest percentage within the S&P 500, which is 7.53%. Apple is then followed by the second largest company, which is Microsoft. And Microsoft takes up 6.98% of the index, and so on and so forth, until we get to Company 500. When you add up all of these percentages, that should add up to 100%. The S&P 500 is something that you cannot directly invest in, but you can invest in an index fund that tracks the performance of the S&P 500. And this kind of index fund is called an S&P 500 index fund. When you buy such an index fund, essentially you're just buying the underlying companies of the S&P 500. For example, if I were to invest $100 into the S&P 500 index fund, that means that $7.53 of my money will be invested in Apple. And then $6.98 of my money will be invested in Microsoft, and so on and so forth until my money is spread out among the 500 companies that make up the S&P 500, and that total will equal $100. The big benefit here is that now you're diversified. You're holding so many companies at the same time that your risk is spread out. An index fund that follows the S&P 500 is self-correcting. If, let's say, Apple, as a hypothetical, were to start doing really poorly and Apple's share price starts falling, at that point, Apple's proportion within the S&P 500 will get lower. If Apple's share price continues to go down in value, Apple will just eventually fall off the index, and some other company will take its place. This way, you don't have to keep track of which company is doing well, which company is doing badly. You just put your money in the index fund, and the index self-corrects for you. And that's pretty awesome. Now, 500 companies is quite diversified. But can we get even more diversified? Oh yeah, we can definitely get more diversified. I would like you to welcome the Total US Stock Market Index Fund. The Total US Stock Market Index Fund tracks all of the companies in the US stock market. And that is 3,883 companies. Talk about diversity. Let's take a look at the top 10 companies in this index fund. You'll notice that it's kind of similar to the S&P 500. However, the percentages are a little bit lower. So Apple occupied 7.53% in the S&P 500, but in the total US stock market index fund, it only occupies 6.53%. Similarly, you'll notice that Microsoft also has a smaller percentage share. The reason for this is that we need to make room for all of the other companies after number 500. All of the 3,883 companies. As a result, instead of having just the largest companies, the total US stock market index fund also has medium-sized companies and small-sized companies. Okay, you're probably thinking 500 companies, 3,883 companies, what's the difference, right? There is a big difference. Let me show you by looking at Tesla. Regardless of what you think about Elon Musk, you have to admit that his company Tesla really revolutionized the car industry. As soon as Tesla entered the stock market, its growth was just astronomical. And don't you wish you could have had a piece of Tesla as soon as it came on the stock market? If you were invested in the S&P 500, you would have missed out on the initial growth of Tesla. That's because the S&P 500, like we talked about, only contains the 500 largest companies. It wasn't until Tesla became large enough to be included in the S&P 500 in 2020 that it make it in. So someone holding the S&P 500 index fund would have missed out on all that growth. However, if you were invested in the total stock market index fund, you would have had Tesla from day one. And that is really cool. Okay, now you're rubbing your hands together and thinking, that's it. I know where I'm going to put my money in, the total US stock market index fund. But can we get even more diversified? Oh yeah, we can get even more diversified. So far, we've just been looking at this big country in North America called the United States of America. What if we were to expand our horizons to the entire world? And that's exactly what we're going to do. There's a world index fund, and this index fund captured a diverse range of companies from the United States, but also from the rest of the world. That's pretty awesome. This index fund contains 9,536 companies. And this fund gives you exposure to 40 different countries. The fund contains all the big companies that we talked about before, like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, etc., and really big foreign companies. Companies like Nestle, AstraZeneca, L'Oreal, Louis Vuitton, Toyota, and Samsung. If you talk to someone who is well-versed in the financial markets, they'll tell you that over the last decade, though, the foreign markets have not performed as well as the US stock market. While that's true for the last decade, there are a lot of papers written. One of them is written by Vanguard, another one written by BlackRock, where the papers show that if we look at a longer period of time, a period of time about 50 years, the international stock markets have outperformed the US stock markets about 40% of the time. And then if you drill in a little bit deeper, in all of the years where the US stock market has performed poorly, every single one of those years, the international stock markets beat out the US stock market. How about them apples? Okay, finally you're thinking, okay, Anand, this is it. I'm going to go ahead and invest in the World Stock Market Index Fund. But can we get even more diversified? Okay, we can't get any more diversified unless someone comes up with the Universe Index Fund or something like that. But for now, this is as diversified as it gets. So which index fund should you invest in? The US Total Stock Market Index Fund or the World Index Fund? To be honest, you can't really go too wrong with either one of those choices. If you invest in the US side and think, well, the US has been performing better than the international stocks over the last decade or so, I'm just going to put my money in that and be done with it. That's a totally fine strategy. If you think, okay, I want more diversification and I'd like to put all my money in the total world index fund, that also makes a lot of sense to me. Personally, I'm invested in the world stock market index fund. I like that extra diversification. Now that you know which index fund you're going to put your money in, how do we actually do it? Well, I've already hit you with a ton of information for this video. In my next video, I'll cover exactly how you would put your money into an index fund. So the steps of opening up a brokerage account or a retirement account at a company like Vanguard or Charles Schwab or Fidelity, and what are the exact steps that you need to do to get your money in there. I know, right? It's a cliffhanger, but just come back and we'll have some more interesting stuff to talk about. And speaking of coming back, if you like this video, please hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button so that you'll get a notification whenever the next video is up. And I always love to hear from you. If you have any comments, please leave it in the comment section. I definitely read through every single comment. Your comments are very important to me. And as always, remember, don't blindly trust a random internet guy. Please make sure that you do your own research to double check that whatever information I'm giving out applies to your specific situation. You really worked hard to earn this money. I just want you to invest responsibly. All right, that's it for this video. But if you stick around, you'll see a link pop up to my previous video. That really sets up the context for this video and everything that we talked about. If you haven't seen it already, please click on that link and go ahead and watch that. Okay, bye everyone.